your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
Okay.
Welcome, logicians, magicians, and Victorians, to the 89th production of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 21st of January 2015, and featuring The Tomb of the Cybermen, written by Kit Pedler and Jerry Davis. I am the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell.
Hello.
Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Always a pleasure.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke.
Hello.
And Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Hey!
We kick off a bit of a light news day today with our fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, and the earliest surviving Doctor's 81st birthday, which occurred yesterday, or I think 2 days ago by British time, since it's already tomorrow in Britain.
Yeah.
Wibbly wobbly, you know.
Timey stuff.
I don't believe he's the oldest living Doctor anymore, thanks to John Hurt, but he's the oldest classic Doctor, paradoxically.
Yeah.
Again,
time.
wibbly
That
wobbly.
makes sense.
Yes.
Wibbly wobbly, tummy wummy. Another man who celebrated a birthday today, or not today, January 17th, James Earl Jones turned 84. You might remember him from a little movie called Star Wars. And he's also appeared in The Lion King as Mufasa, and as Thulsa Doom in Conan the Barbarian, and in Field of Dreams. And I just got this funny image in my head of Darth Vader giving his speech to the bounty hunters, and him doing the baseball speech from Field of Dreams, and Boba Fett is going like, "What's up with this guy?"
You forgot Admiral Greer from Hunt for Red October.
Oh, shame on me then.
All that we see is our land. We will rule the Pride Land as father and son.
Also, wasn't he in Doctor Strangelove?
He was in Doctor Strangelove, one of his earlier films, and he appeared in Sneakers at the end, and he is currently appearing on Broadway in a revival of the comedy You Can't Take It With You, which runs until February 22nd.
See, it's people like this why I can't fathom retiring. I look at people like Christopher Lee, Tom Baker, James Earl Jones, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to live to be that much older than these guys. They're obviously not retired.
These people will never retire from the online stuff, that's for sure.
In other Star Wars news, Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca, was hospitalized with pneumonia, but reports say that he is expected to make a full recovery and will appear in the new Star Wars movie. Fans have already posted on Twitter and Reddit, offering their sympathies and condolences about his ill health to his Mr. Mayhew and his family, and I'm sure we all wish him a speedy recovery.
Yeah, they're filming the Han movie allegedly this year, so it would definitely be nice to see the original Chewbacca there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of hospitalizations, or something to the effect, Brian Blessed also collapsed on stage on Monday evening. It was the first showing of him as King Lear. If I understand reading the article, apparently he does have a strange tick of the heart every once in a while, and that's essentially what caused him to collapse early on in the showing. 20 minutes after taking him off stage, he literally walked back onto stage and said, "We're back on." And
I
he
blame the
continued
Time
the rest of
Lords.
the night just fine.
Yeah, that's good because that's one death I really do not want to report on this podcast.
Oh,
is,
definitely not, but
Brian
I'm
Blessed.
afraid it might happen one of these days.
Yeah, if it does, the world will be a much quieter place.
Speaking of deaths, we don't want to report on the podcast. This is kind of related to what we've been talking about today. With everything going on last year, I had this feeling of dread that I was sure Tom Baker was going to die sometime around December. And thankfully, we've reached another January and announced another birthday of his, so that did not happen.
Thankfully.
Tom Baker can't die.
By the way, for people who are wondering, Brian Blessed here was in a episode of Doctor Who called Mind Warp. He also made a guest cameo at the end of the Trial of the Time Lord's story arc.
Yes, he was King Yakarnos,
And he was
the barbarian king.
Mm-hmm. He was supposedly married to Perry. I might also add that that character felt a lot like his other previous role from Flash Gordon, where he was the King of the Hawkmen. I'm trying to think of his name, but I can't.
So
it's not coming to me.
he just tends to be a king.
He tends to be a very loud bearded man, is what he tends to be.
I can see him as King Henry VIII.
I can see him as Santa Claus.
Oh, I would love to see him as Santa Claus.
Oh my gosh.
Has his beard gone white yet?
I'm pretty sure that the beard on the pictures dies, so yeah, I would assume his beard has gone white. Yeah, actually, I have seen his beard of dyes, so yeah, it is gone white. He could do
A
Santa.
booming Santa Claus.
Hello, children!
Oh, ho, ho. Actually, that works pretty well.
Exactly. BBC, this needs to happen. Come on, guys.
Why couldn't you have used him in the Doctor Who Christmas special?
Oh, he would have been
Just-
a special kind of
just
Santa,
saying.
wouldn't he? Anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of special gifts, Variety is reporting that Netflix is no longer removing Doctor Who or Luther or many of the other stuff that they said they were going to be taking off. They're going to keep classic and current Doctor Who series, Luther, Top Gear seasons 17 through 20, Torchwood, Wallander, Keeping Up Appearances, and the original Office and House of Cards series. However, this new deal where they're keeping all of these did not include Sherlock, Happy Valley, The Honorable Woman, Call the Midwife, or any of those other ones. So.
To be
Well,
more specific,
Sherlock
the negotiations didn't include them because they were not up for renewal / in the case of Sherlock specifically, I believe someone else has the distribution rights for the U.S., so BBC didn't have anything to do with that anyway.
Yeah.
By the way, check the very bottom there. Fans should plan to enjoy Fawlty Towers, Black Adder, MI5, Red Dwarf before February 1st, when they will no longer be available.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that is a shame.
they are losing Red Dwarf.
Yeah,
But still,
I really didn't have any doubt that they would renew Doctor Who as soon as possible. Red Dwarf doesn't surprise me that much because, from my understanding, it's a lot more niche, and it just may not be worth the money for them, or at least may not be worth the effort.
it'll probably come back on Netflix when there's another season of it, and there will be another season of it.
Oh yeah,
Eventually,
absolutely, without a doubt.
Also, I would think that instead of talking to BBC, depending, they might have to talk to the other executives that actually run the show.
It's possible.
So
with
it might
some
not be
of
a
them,
package deal with BBC
it-
anymore.
Yeah, it could have been that BBC also sold their distribution rights for things like Red Dwarf to Dave TV,
Mm-hmm.
which is the people that are actually making Red Dwarf now. So that might be the case there.
Yep.
I can't tell you about Blackadder.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Blackadder. That one confuses me, other than the
But-
fact that it's an older show.
Either way, this is kind of a confirmation of what we said last week, that it was just a negotiation thing that was going on.
Yeah.
Probably the BBC, if it's not that some of these got sold off, it might be that the BBC wanted more money, and they were probably negotiating what they could cut down to get it at about the same price.
It's also, and I mean, particularly with something like Netflix, if they don't see enough people viewing a certain program, they're going to turn around and be like, well, we just either don't want to fork out the money or we want you to drop the price, and BBC might not be interested in dropping the price. So if some of these didn't have a very high audience on Netflix, then they just would have gone into negotiations not really caring if they kept it or not.
Blackadder was on my list, dang it.
I'm glad I sat down and watched it a couple of years ago.
Now, I'm familiar with the name, but I can't place what Blackadder is.
It stars the guy who played Mr. Bean.
Rowan Atkinson?
Yeah.
Yes.
As the
It's
title
Rowan
character,
Atkinson's
Blackadder.
other season, or other series, which each season takes place in a different period historically. And Rowan's basically playing a descendant of his character from the previous seasons.
Okay.
And you basically get to watch the fall of the Blackadder family.
I would also add that a lot of really popular names popped up throughout. Matter of fact, at one point they had a peg-legged captain played by Tom Baker.
Yeah, that was awesome. He got to make a joke about drinking his own pee.
Was that during the fourth season that took place during World War I?
No,
Nope,
that was
earlier.
earlier.
Second season during Elizabethan era.
Oh, see, now that you say Tom Baker in the fourth season of something, even though it's not true, I'm just imagining. Imagine if he had made it a running gag throughout his entire acting career to appear in the fourth season of everything after he left Doctor Who.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yes, but the main
I
joke
would do it. I would so do it if in his position.
That sounds like something more like Shatner would do, but yeah.
The main joke I should probably point out for Blackadder, the main joke is that the reason why he's called Blackadder, other than just being a family name, is that it's also that he's kind of a more treacherous side of the royal family and trying to constantly scheme his way onto the throne.
And failing.
Yep.
Mostly because he's surrounded by incompetence, but mostly because he's incompetent too. This is Rowan Atkinson, after all.
With a crazed
Think
sunburned
of it.
Tom Baker.
Think of it as kind of a British periodic Pinky and the Brain, only with humans.
Pretty much.
I just remembered my ringtone is Blackadder's theme song.
Moving on from Netflix, as always, we have our Big Finish releases, which I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail than normal since we don't need to rush through it today. We've talked a little bit about Gallifrey Intervention Earth, which is featuring Ace as well as Omega. And there's actually, in podcast form, the first episode of Gallifrey Intervention Earth is currently free on BigFinish.com. You can get it through their news section, or if they might have a separate podcast section. I've never looked for it. Yeah, they do have a separate podcast section. So you can find that there. There's also some discussion with the director. In related Gallifrey news, they actually announced another season of Gallifrey, which I thought was my next tab. There we go. And that is still the wrong tab. Enemy Lines is going to be the upcoming season of Gallifrey. So not only is a new one coming out now, there's another one in the works. So Gallifrey fans definitely have a lot to keep looking forward to. Separate from that, the first 2015 episode or adventure of the Fourth Doctor Adventures, which I kind of thought had been collapsed into the main line. Apparently I was wrong, is out, and that is the Exelons.
They're keeping a separate adventure chain, and I think there's a few mainline inserts. Like the Eighth Doctor wasn't also incorporated in the main line, and he still had his own side series of adventures that went on.
Oh, I thought he wasn't added to the main line until they had closed down the Eighth Doctor line. Of course,
no.
then they brought it back with Dark Eyes and such, but...
Yep.
So the Exelons is the first Fourth Doctor adventure of 2014, and that is featuring Leela, I'm pretty sure. Yes, of 2015. I'm sorry if I misspoke. That is featuring Leela and K9. I'm assuming John Leeson is playing K9, unless he might be playing someone else. Who knows?
So are they still using the tagline, "It's Saturday afternoon in 1975 all over again"? That used to be the tagline for the Tom Baker serials, because it was actually Tom Baker saying it.
Ah, if so, it's not in the announcement.
Ah.
And as for announcements, this is tangentially related to Doctor Who, and in a busier news day, we'd probably skip over it. But they've announced this is a carryover piece of news. It was initially announced at Big Finish Day, their Big Finish convention, but then was now released on BigFinish.com. That is essentially they're doing a crossover adventure titled The Worlds of Big Finish, which is going to feature Sherlock Holmes, played by Nicholas Briggs, Iris Wildthyme, who has it was played by Katie Manning, who was also Joe Grant. Some other Big Finish properties that I'm not as familiar with, and Bernie Summerfield, who was initially invented as a Seventh Doctor companion in the novels, and is a large part of why Big Finish was kicked off to begin with. Who now, of course, has her own line, as do others. But unfortunately, there's no actual legit Doctor Who representation in here, probably because the BBC didn't really buy into this. But if you're a general Big Finish fan or a fan of the Doctor's adventures with those characters, it would be worth checking out. And this is being released in May. Oh, actually, it's a multi-story set, so I guess it's a crossover box set type deal.
Okie doke.
And that's about it for Big Finish Doctor Who related.
I think that's it for news.
Yep.
Okay. So is there anything on the side that anyone wants to talk about? Since we have time to kill.
Yeah. I feel
Wow,
like someone
yeah.
had mentioned something they wanted to talk about, but I can't remember what it was.
Well, we could talk
I think
a
it
little
was
bit.
related to the episode, but...
I have something I want to talk about related to the episode. I was looking for if there's anything else.
Oh, okay.
Because what I have isn't going to take half an hour.
Right.
Nah. Well, if it ends up a short episode, it ends up a short episode.
Alright, nothing
At least
else
it's not
going on?
short for a bad reason.
Anybody seen Agent Carter and seen how it is?
I have not yet, actually, because when the first episode aired, it was not available on free Hulu the following day, so I had not yet found a way to watch it, and I just have not found the time since then.
Okay. Yeah, I tried watching it the other night, but my attention was elsewhere, so I did not actually...
I've heard a lot of good things. Well, some mixed and mostly good things, a few mediocre things, but I've heard mostly praise for it.
Take it as you will.
Okay. Anything else new that's been going on? No, nothing I can think of.
Nothing new in movies.
I recently watched almost the full run of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. I only have the untelevised or about half of the untelevised unfinished season 6 to watch. So that's something. It was definitely an interesting watch, but it was rather frustrating the fact that when there were serial stories, they were released together. But if it wasn't a serial story, it pretty much jumped around the wartime period willy nilly. So unless you're actually sitting there with a reference material, you have no idea what is actually in chronological order and what isn't. So I do plan to rewatch it with an episode guide, watching it in chronological order next time.
Okay, I never really realized that or felt that way, but then everything just kind of it felt like its own. It just felt like a usual TV show where it was episodic.
Yeah, a lot of it is episodic, but then you get things like a mid-season 3 story, which is actually a prelude to the series premiere, an episode of season 1. And a few other things that are really out of place, like things from the end of the war shoved randomly into the middle. And
which is this again?
Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I started watching it, and I think I got about halfway through season 3, but never got further than that. It was good. It was okay. I like it better than Rebels. Star Wars
Rebels is kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
Either one is better than
Yeah,
the movies.
or at the very least.
I mean,
has
Rebels
some footing
occasionally
yet
has
to
its
anything.
moments where you go, yeah, this is Star Wars, but other moments that are like, what the.
Although
Yeah.
I mean, as I was watching the first season of the Clone Wars, I found a few more mediocre moments than I found later. So I feel like Rebels probably still needs to hit its stride. I generally give shows a full season before I really try to make a judgment on them.
Before you bring down the hammer.
I'm a critic
Yeah.
these days. I make judgments based on what I see.
Yes, but
And at
sometimes
this point,
they have to work to their point.
I'm also trying to get a hang on whether this is what we're going to see from Disney Star Wars, and thus far, I'm kind of, eh.
Oh, actually, I should also note. Well, okay, this isn't something I've read since the past week. I've written and published a review on Tarkin, which I believe is the first new canon novel in the Star Wars line, and I have to say it does fit equally well in the original Star Wars universe as it does in the reboot. So far, they're going fairly good. I'm glad that they brought James Luceno back.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of sci-fi stuff, I recently decided to retry my hand at the PC version of Fallout 3. Fan patches for the game because Bethesda tends to ban their games without fully patching them to working order. As far as I'm aware, the fan patches have reached the point where the game is now playable on PC.
I was playing the Xbox 360 version a while ago. I found it to be quite interesting.
It's a very good game. I played it on PlayStation 3. However, even on PlayStation 3, there's numerous bugs, and I'm pretty sure you'll hit them on Xbox as well. One of them
I
is
won't
actually
now. That was with my former roommate.
Oh. Well, one of the things that apparently plagues both systems was the fact that as you get further into the game, the radio will actually cause the game to lock up and crash. So one of the things you have to actually do in there once you get past the halfway point is actually turn off the radio, which makes it kind of a little bit bland. Hopefully, PC is getting patched for that. So
it's very interesting. I still need to see the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries Ascension, but it apparently it has some of that same feel as it was basically a ship that took off in the '60s as a generation ship. So the last culture influx they've had was from the '60s, and this is of course alternate '50s post-nuclear holocaust is what Fallout's like.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, there's definitely alternate, but if you look at their art style and stuff, it's like mankind never evolved past the 1950s.
Or more like it went back
So
to the 1950s in the distant future, and they became very cozy with their lifestyles, and then everything went to hell.
Regardless, it has that very 50s paranoia feel, and the art style of some of the stuff looks kind of that 50s post Art Deco look.
Yes.
It's an interesting game. I never got to play New Vegas. I'm a little upset about that.
Well, I have both, and 1 and 2.
I never got to finish the game. I'm really upset about that. It's going to eat at me forever. I'll have to buy it for like PS3 at some point.
Yeah, the systems are a little bit more stable than PC, but PC,
Yes.
once the fans are done, will be more playable in the end.
I'm not sure my computer could take it without melting. Anyway, was there anything else we wanted to talk about? We've managed to eat about 10 minutes.
There's actually something I've been considering mentioning. I just wanted to find a primary source for it. And okay, I'm showing that primary sources do exist, but apparently, Cortana from the Halo series is going to be introduced in Windows 10 as a desktop helper, and I've seen it asked on Facebook as to what artificial intelligence people would actually want, as a desktop helper. So I know it's a minor thing, not particularly. But I think it's a fair discussion topic since we have time. Personally, if I could pick any AI to be helping me on the computer, it would be K9.
Hello. Murderer.
Yeah, Microsoft has really been, and I can't say this without phrasing, but I'll say it. Microsoft has really been pimping out Cortana because the latest,
Yeah.
the latest, Microsoft phones have the Cortana as their equivalent of the iPhone's vocal assistant. I can't remember what the iPhone's assistant
Siri,
name
I
was.
think.
Siri, yeah. So Cortana is their Siri. I've seen
I
the
wasn't
ads.
aware that Windows Phone had managed to survive this long. I thought it had died an unnoble death and been forgotten.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. No,
You're talking
either that or
about
they've gotten back
Microsoft,
into,
bitch.
either that or they've gotten back into the market because Windows 8 was meant to be mobile.
Either that
So-
or they've just been throwing enough money at it that it can't die.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
That's
now they're
what
throwing
Microsoft
Cortana
does.
at it. So that they're all the freaking Halo,
Again,
all the
phrasing.
freaking Halo all the freaking Halo otaku out there are going to be basically going, "Oh, I can get a phone with Cortana on it," and buying Microsoft, even though it probably is absolute crap.
Right.
Mm.
So what
I'm waiting.
AI
I'm
would,
waiting
would
for
you guys
Cortana
want?
to vocal assist Bing.
So if you had to pick one AI from all of Sci-Fi to help you when you were sitting at your computer, who would you want?
I would want the HAL 9000.
Floor went
So
crazy.
you would want a computer. You would want a computer that says, I'm sorry, Randy, I can't let you do that.
When I'm trying to do something that I'm not allowed to do, yes.
I'm sorry, Randy. I can't let you see that. You can't
Either
unsee
that-
that.
Either HAL or Eddie the shipboard computer.
Oh, Eddie.
Hi there!
How was everyone today?
Hitchhiker, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. I was trying to play it for a
the
second.
hyperactive, over-eager shipboard computer of
Yeah.
the heart of gold. Mostly so I could threaten the computer on repeatedly.
For a second, I was thinking you were talking the hologram from Red Dwarf because I couldn't remember that's name.
Holly.
No,
Holly.
well,
Holly.
Holly is the ship's computer in that, and that would probably be my third choice. Rimmer, no way in hell.
The AI that leaps to my
Rimmer.
mind is Synergy.
Oh,
Synergy.
from Jen and the Holograms? God damn
Oh.
it!
Yep.
You stole my idea.
Oh man.
Are we
Okay, I have backup
stealing each
ones.
other's choices already? We haven't even gotten to the episode.
We haven't even gotten to the episode proper yet.
Yeah. We're stealing each other's ideas from old 80s cartoons, no less.
I do find it surprising that in all of these discussions, nobody mentions the TARDIS from the Doctor's wife.
Because we don't really consider that an AI. I don't either, anyway.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't normally get to talk to that computer.
I would have
Well,
Now,
no
mind
idea.
you, if I could,
You do
if
get
I-
to
if I
talk
could-
to her, but normally she just gives attitude back. But as somebody once
Yeah.
mentioned, you would type in a URL and she would decide that she wanted to go somewhere else.
Now, if I could have any vehicle in science fiction, I would want the TARDIS hands down. Even more than I would want the Starship Enterprise, which is pretty high up on my list too.
Mm-hmm.
I want a Death Star.
I was
Just
thinking.
Where
attach
would you
rockets to
park
the
it?
back of it.
Anywhere you want to. That's
I
where
was-
you park
Over
it,
a
Randy.
planet.
I was thinking a Borg cube myself.
Because see, the problem with the Death Star is
Oh my god!
Star-
Death
Star
Star
Wars-
versus Borg Cube. Who would win in a fight?
I've seen it. It's out on YouTube somewhere.
Here's a
No,
hint: Borg cubes can time travel.
The problem with
So can I with the power of the Force.
getting the Death Star is you're asking any one ship. That means you get the Death Star. You don't get any shuttles or TIE fighters to go with it. And Star Wars technology does not include transporters. So
That we've
you're on the Death
seen.
Star and you're stuck
No,
up there.
we can teleport though.
Where is there
Use-
teleport in Star Wars?
Someone hasn't read the expanded universe.
That is an extremely limited technique that, yeah, I wouldn't
The
even
Dark
go there.
Lady, the Dark Lady could do it. She
Di-
can
Dis-
teleport.
Disney has voided the entire expanded universe.
I'm.
No, it's
We
still,
don't care.
It's still viable. It's still viable.
Oh,
as
by the
Legends.
way, you know what I realized yesterday? If Disney's rebooting the Star Wars universe, you know what that means? That means Greedo shooting first is canon. So yeah, I think I'll stick with the original universe for the time being.
Yeah, it's, by the way, the original universe is still somewhat viable as Legends, so they're not completely throwing out the old one. It's just going to be kind of treated as rumor and
Well,
hearsay.
I should mention that just like Star Trek already had its own alternate universes, the Star Wars expanded universe already included alternate dimensions.
Yeah.
Those familiar with God damn it, why am I so bad? No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about damn it, I'm always terrible with names when I want to use them. But in the Crystal Star, there's a there's a being from another dimension who spends the entire novel trying to get back to his home dimension. So there's definitely a precedent for a multiple universe theory within Star Wars.
Yeah.
All right.
Suck it, nerds. We got infinite power, nerd.
Infinite power. The only nerd there is.
All right, so we've managed to burn 15 minutes.
I don't think we've burned enough. Let's talk more about Star Wars.
No. Let's not talk about Star Wars. It is a silly place.
Only when it's to do with episodes 1 through 3. That's a very silly place.
Speaking of which, I'm trying to... Oh, wait. Oh, we'll be talking about Daleks when I go to Star Wars Celebration, so there might be Star Wars interrupting that.
What? Oh. Oh,
Let's
I
see,
was wondering what that... What...
The week that we do the chase, I'm going to be...
by the way, bad Bill, giving the viewers a taste of what will be coming up in later podcasts.
Yeah, I thought we announced that.
Nope.
Technically not.
Yeah.
Not to our audience.
But there is one week that I'll be traveling on Wednesday, so we actually do need to discuss what we'll be doing that week. But
we'll just hold the podcast without you.
Or a day early or a day late. The only person this podcast can't run without is me, because I'm the recorder.
And I'm looking for a way around that.
Here. There's another person with a Twitch account here. We just can't lose you and Aaron at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
True.
Because I've been looking in case you become really, really sick, Matt, you know? Like,
thankfully that hasn't
sick
happened yet.
that you're so sick that you can't operate your computer. So I've been wondering what, that we should have somebody else an alternative for that. But
I don't know.
This is a conversation to have after the podcast, not during it.
I feel like if me and Randy both get sick at the same time, the podcast is just going to become a circus.
It isn't already? And not to mention Toll Biscuit worries about that all the time, and this still doesn't affect the viewership.
Yeah, the thing is, people watch him. I was gonna say. Now we're making fun of ourselves.
And we make ourselves sad.
Sad.
I make myself sad all the time.
I got $3 from Patreon.
Really?
Yeah, I got 2 people who have donated at least $1 or 2 to my Patreon now. That's why I shared that image on the chat earlier today.
Okay. So, shall we actually move on to our topic of discussion?
Yep.
I guess.
Suppose.
Okay. So, what we're discussing today is Tomb of the Cybermen. This
Best title
particular
ever.
episode is one of... Well, first of all, it is this season and the previous one did kind of start the X of the Y for Doctor Who.
This is the first of 4 episodes with Of the Cybermen in the title.
Yeah, well, this did start the Of the Cybermen craze, but there's still a couple of them that came up in the second Doctor season. It was pretty much the 4th Doctor era that started the Of the Cybermen, of the Dalek craze that became a tradition. Before that, they actually did vary around a bit, but this was the first of the Cybermen, and with Power of the Daleks and Evil of the Daleks, the series before, they were really starting to get into this whole X of the Y thing that became a real Doctor Who standard. And it was not just of the Daleks, it's, City of Death and...
Of the Doctor.
Yeah. Time of the Doctor, Day of the Doctor. Yeah. It's referred to as X of the Y. And that's a trope, and Doctor Who is the biggest offender of it. But
Well,
anyway,
since being around since the 60s, it's hard not to be.
this Tomb of the Cybermen is legendary in the Doctor Who community because it is the earliest fully complete second Doctor serial, not including episodes that have been or serials that have been reanimated.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also one of the lost episodes or one of the lost serials that was found.
Damn it, Randy! You said reanimated, and now I'm picturing a crossover between Herbert West and the Tomb Cybermen.
Okay.
Not sure how that would work.
I'm not sure either. I'm not trying to think. I'm trying not to think about it because I'm trying to get through this bit. Anyway, prior to 1991, the earliest Patrick Troughton serial still alive was, I believe, oh God, I can't remember the episode now. It was, but it was in the last season of Troughton. Not the Smugglers.
War Games?
No, it wasn't the War Games. The War Games
wasn't the Mind Robber an early?
It might have been the Mind Robber, but that was
yeah.
at the end of the season, so that probably would have been the earliest survivor. I can't remember if that one was found though or not, because I know that one wasn't aired when they started showing it in the 80s, because it went straight from the War Machines, which was the last surviving William Hartnell serial, to God, why cannot I not remember the name of this episode? The Dominators. It would go straight from the War Machines to the Dominators. I'm thinking what happened was the Mind Robber was found in the 80s and just didn't make it to the Lionheart transitions until afterwards. Anyway, this serial was thought lost in its entirety until 1991. When Asian television, ATV, decided that to clean out its archives of material and basically held a scratch and dent sale. And somebody browsing through this discovered the entire set of Tomb of the Cybermen sitting in this bargain bin, and went up to the guy at ATV and went, "Hey, you realize that the BBC is looking for all of this?" And ATV basically then contacts them, turns it in for the reward. I think there was actually that was actually during the beginning of the reward period, and brought it back from its basically what was its television its overseas masters, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And this at the time was a huge coup because, you know, they were finding an episode here, they were finding an episode there, and they were able to piece together whole serials from separate finds. People finding, you know, episode this of this in their attic, but no one had turned in a whole serial at once before. And so this was absolutely huge, especially from an area of Troughton that was missing so much.
Why isn't there a guide online of Doctor Who episodes that were found and when? I'm surprised nobody's put together a list of that.
I thought there was one on Wikipedia.
Not like, I mean, there's...
Actually, there's SF Debris did a pretty extensive few videos about what was lost and what was found.
I mean, yeah, specifically, like, you know, this was found in the 70s, this was found in 1980, etc.
Oh,
Wikipedia does have information on it, but you'd have to read the whole article really to put together that sort of information.
He wants a flow chart.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wants a timeline, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they had to put this together. From what I remember hearing, because I was avidly paying attention when they found these in 91, they were in pretty crappy shape when they were found. Because they had basically been sitting in storage in like the company's attic or basement. And this company had been repurchased like 2-3 times over the course of the last 20 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
It had started out as what was called rediffusion television, which was basically the BBC's Hong Kong network, essentially. It was kind of like the ABC in Australia, but for Hong Kong, which, if you remember, was a British colony at the time. It was given independence in, I believe, 1978, 76, somewhere in there. And then in the early 80s, it was rebranded to Asian Television. And then it was purchased again in 89, and it was this company, I'm pretty sure, that had decided to clean out its basement and hold this scratch and dent, which this was found. And following this find, I'm pretty sure they went through their entire library with a fine-tooth comb looking for more of these missing episodes, and they found absolutely nothing. They had only had these 4 episodes of Tomb of the Cybermen.
Which is a really weird random find.
Theory is, and this
Well,
is only
it was a season premiere, so
theory is, and this is only speculation, that that Rediffusion may not have aired it themselves. That the Tomb of the Cybermen had gone to ABC or maybe New Zealand or someplace like that, and was on its way back to the BBC, and got sidetracked in Hong Kong. That's only a theory, because nobody really knows for certain, or if they do, they haven't really told the press. Regardless, it's considered to be one of the luckiest finds in Doctor Who history, because the person that was there was looking for, wasn't expecting Doctor Who. Was probably looking for like old kung fu television shows or something from actual, Chinese television, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some imports from Japan, something like that. Anything but Doctor Who. I would actually consider this more important than the find in 2013 because they were there looking for Doctor Who. They assumed it was there. They went for it, and they found it, whereas this one was completely random. And that kind of makes it kind of even more important in my mind. And for a lot of people, Tomb became really their first exposure to the second Doctor that wasn't worn down and tired as he was by his 3rd season.
Yeah. That, and also is probably one of the earliest Cybermen episodes that they actually had a full story of, too.
Well, yeah.
That it to this day it's the early, well, not counting animated stories, to this day it's the earliest Cyberman story we have the full story of, and the next one after we have the full Invasion now. I'm thinking.
No.
Invasion, no, that's animated
No.
for a
Invasion
couple
is still
episodes.
animated.
So it's the
really,
only Cyberman from the only Cyberman story from the 60s we have the whole thing of.
It's the
Yes.
only pre-Tom Baker Cyberman story that's intact.
Yeah, because they're unknown from the
Yep. The first
Perfect.
one that most people were familiar with the Cybermen was Revenge of the Cybermen, and that is not the greatest episode, which is why most people were familiar with was the 80s Cybermen. The ones that premiered in Earthshock and went on through the end of the period with only minor upgrades.
Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong; those are some good models, but then they became more chrome at the end.
They got a new color costume every time they appeared.
Well, they had to spray paint those suits just about every time because they'd pull them out of archives and they'd be all cracked. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
I mean, we went from only the gray ones to gray ones and black ones to silver ones.
so really, Tomb of the Cybermen became pretty much the basis for what the early Cybermen were. 10th Planet was still missing its 4th part. The Invasion was half missing. Wheel in Space is still missing, and Moonbase,
Yeah,
of
it's
course,
still
is...
2/3 missing, or
Mm-hmm.
Moonbase is half missing.
So it's kind of was kind of hard to get a grip on the early Cybermen unless you liked listening to the audio. So, and it came through at a time where Doctor Who was kind of at a low. It had been 2 years since the show had been canceled. It would be 2 years before the 30th anniversary. And there was a lot of people out there that were sick of Doctor Who at the time.
Then all of a sudden, a little thing like this comes along, and people just go, "Oh."
I had initially thought this wasn't released on video. It was in England. I don't think it was released on until the DVD release here in America. But it was the most purchased video in the UK. The first time Doctor Who had ever become the most purchased thing until the new series, and before that. It's the only time Classic Who ever topped the charts in anything was when it was when Tomb of the Cybermen was the top-selling video. So, without further ado, I will go into the synopsis, unless anyone has anything else to say.
Now that you say that, I'm wondering if Patrick Troughton was alive when this episode was found.
He was.
I think, I was gonna say, I think he was alive
I
for at least
think
a couple
they were
more
going
years.
to. I think they were going to have an airing at the convention that he died at.
Because I knew he didn't survive to the 30th anniversary, obviously.
Because I think Troughton died in '93.
93,
And
yeah, it would have been
93,
30th.
and Pertwee died in '95.
Just
Because
a couple
that
years after.
95 or '96. I think it was '96 because I believe the Doctor Who movie was aired a month, one way or another, from his death.
Are you saying the Doctor Who movie killed Patrick Troughton? No, not Patrick. John Pertwee.
No,
But a month's difference.
I also could be wrong about that, but I thought it was somewhere in there. Yes, 20 May 1996. So it was basically the same month that the Doctor Who movie came out. Pertwee died.
The Doctor Who movie killed John Pertwee.
No, apparently America kills doctors.
Mm-hmm.
That and asbestos.
Because Patrick Troughton died at a convention here in the United States, and Pertwee was on vacation when he died, and I believe he was like in Florida or somewhere like that.
No wonder I've never seen Tom Baker at a convention I was at.
Tom Baker's been plenty of conventions over here, dude.
He was in New York. So
New York,
he literally it was 6 days after the Doctor Who movie, and then Pertwee died a week later. It was like, wow. Talk about your letdowns. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure it was not the Doctor Who movie that killed him.
I don't know, he could have died of a broken heart.
No, he would have died a week earlier.
Well, maybe he couldn't catch it opening weekend, Randy. Some people aren't privileged.
He was in New York. It was on TV. On a Tuesday. Then
He
again,
was
he
on a
might have
secret
been watching
mission for UNIT
Roseanne.
and couldn't watch TV.
He might have been watching Roseanne.
Oh,
You know, like with the rest of the United States.
True.
Roseanne.
Anyway.
Okay.
At least it's not Dancing with the Stars. Or is the X Factor, whichever one's opposite Doctor Who.
I don't know. I was thinking of Britain's Got Talent. Barrowman! Anyway, so should I go ahead with the synopsis, or there's anything else that we need to say?
Nothing that we couldn't probably save till later, after we do
Yeah.
the synopsis and everything else.
Okay, so the episode starts with the Doctor showing Victoria around the TARDIS, fresh after her last adventure, which occurred during the previous season of Doctor Who. By the way, this was about 6 or 7 months of production after the moon base.
Yeah.
They basically finished their last season. They had 2 months off, July and August, and this started in September.
Yeah,
So-
it had still not yet been a year since from the start of the 10th planet.
Yes. So they'd had 3 Cybermen episodes in less than a year. Go fig.
And that's the first time that ever happened when you consider that the second Dalek serial wasn't until the second serial of the season following the season the Daleks were premiered in.
Mm-hmm. And people complained that Russell T Davies tended to use the same characters too much. Anyway, so it starts out with the Doctor showing Victoria around the interior of the TARDIS, which she doesn't believe is an actual time ship. And so the Doctor proves it by taking them from a trip from where they were, which was Skaro, to someplace else, which turns out to be the planet Telos, where there's an archaeological expedition using explosives to basically blast open a mountain to find their thing. Really good archaeology, people.
Let's make boom booms.
The archaeological group consists of Perry, the leader, his assistant, John Viner. I'm trying to remember the names of everybody.
Captain
The
John
ship's
Wayne.
Captain Hopper, I believe his name was. And the funders for this, Miss Captain, Eric Klieg, and their manservant Lurch. Toberman.
Doberman.
Because really his entire job is to sit there, look strong, and I think he had only 2 lines at the end, which were more than 1 word.
Yeah,
Well,
pretty
he
much.
had a few little lines here and there too, but they were relatively short. Yes.
Another man approaches the blasted revealed metal doors and promptly gets electrocuted and drops dead as the TARDIS lands. So Vidner accuses the Doctor and companions who have come out of sabotaging the whole thing and basically, fingers point everything, and the Doctor calms them down, but tenses up again when Perry announces that they're there to look for the tomb of the Cybermen. Of course, the Cybermen being a red-letter buzzword for the Doctor, he, of course, immediately has to stay and help. So, with the Doctor's help, they enter this huge vault, I guess would be the best term for it. And inside, they find a control panel with a series of levers, dials, and switches. Hidden doors, sealed hatch. They look around with each other as Klieg and Captain start talking to each other mysteriously, setting off the Doctor's warning villain signals. The Doctor tells Jamie and Victoria to be careful with what they're doing, as Klieg starts working on trying to open these doors using the levers. But the Doctor figures out that these levers work on symbolic logic, which Klieg gets pissed off at because he's a logician. They manage to open the side door, but the center hatch remains sealed. So the members basically split up and start exploring these rooms. The women and the expedition leader come across a chamber with basically what turns to be a re-energizing. Basically, think of it as the Borg alcoves from Star Trek, only for Cybermen. And in another room, Jamie and another character I'd forgotten to mention, Peter Hayden, find a small caterpillar-like object on the floor, which people watching later Cybermen or knowing their history would recognize as being a cybermat, only very, very small.
They have grown, yes.
As
And then shrank
as the
again.
two check on further, it turns out that one of the rooms is actually a weapons testing room, and Captain gets his fool ass shot and killed, which causes Perry to start having some second thoughts about this expedition. After all, he's lost two people over the course of basically half an hour. He gathers everybody in the central area as Klieg still works on trying to figure out how to open the central hatch, and tells everybody that as soon as possible the expedition will be leaving and going back. As the captain arrives, he asks when they can leave. The captain tells them they can't, because the fuel for the rockets has been tampered with, and it's going to take him a while to fix it. Not having anything better to do, they decide to continue their exploration. As Klieg figures out how to open the hatch with a little bit of subliminal help from the doctor, opening the door down below. Everybody goes down except Victoria and Captain. Victoria, because the doctor asked her to keep an eye on Captain, and Captain initially wanted Toberman to stay with her, but the doctor states that he will stay if Toberman does, and she relents. Captain then offers Victoria a meal and some drink, and drugs Victoria's drink, putting her to sleep. Meanwhile, down below, they discover it's A, very cold, and B, after a bit of going, they find basically what looks to be frozen tombs and another control panel, which they think might operate the hatch above. Captain, in the meanwhile, has closed the above hatch, trapping them down there. Klieg says he can open it, but in reality, what Klieg is doing is thawing out the Cybermen. And after a bit of argument, one of the other guys tries to refreeze them. Klieg turns around and shoots him in the back with a gun, basically saying, yes, I'm the bad guy. I am going to use the Cybermen to take over the Earth. In almost typical villain-style megalomania, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
But, of course, his plans are put on hold as the Cybermen do awake and let out the cyber leader who basically says, you will become like us. You know, your typical Cyberman banter. The Cybermen recognize the Doctor from their previous expedition on the moon base, and seem to also realize that he's the same one that was in the 10th planet.
I think they mentioned that on the moon base, too.
Well, on the moon base, they did tell him you are known to us.
Mm-hmm.
Which was interesting, with a different face. But yes,
Yeah.
they do actually accuse him of destroying their homeworld in this. So that was kind of an interesting eyebrow raiser there. They inform everybody that they're going to be converted into Cybermen, with Klieg first, and he was going to be the leader of the new Cybermen, but didn't like the process of being a Cyberman. Up on top, the pilot crew has returned, and are trying to open the hatch, but Captain pulls out a gun and orders them to stop. Victoria screams, and Captain is disarmed, letting them open up the tomb, and Hopper goes down to try to help out the others. As the Cybermen are planning on starting their conversions, Hopper jumps out, uses smoke grenades to distract the Cybermen, while everyone manages to escape, except for two people. Toberman and Klieg are both still left down there. Toberman is brought to the cyber controller, who says they will use his power. Klieg manages to sneak up to the hatch and knocks on the door, and they reluctantly open it up and let him out. Another mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Klieg and Kaftan are moved into the testing range to try to keep them out of mischief, which is mistake 2.
Oh yeah.
Let's put the villains into a room with weapons testing. Captain Hopper goes back to fix the ship. Inside the tomb, the Cybermen pull out larger Cybermats. These actually need 2 hands to be held, and have them start infesting the control room, going up a series of basically a ventilation shaft. Inside the testing room, Krieg predictably pulls the weapon out of the hands of the gun tester, and a captain tells him that he would be able to control the Cybermen with this gun, as well as, of course, our heroes. And this kind of drives Klieg into a little more of his megalomaniac feat, saying he can't wait to use the gun on the Doctor and his friends. Outside, people are trying to get some sleep when the Cybermats start coming out, and the Doctor wakes everybody up and rigs the electrical cables to short them out. Klieg and Kaftan choose this moment to step out armed with the gun, which Klieg fires directly at the Doctor. Fortunately, Jamie's there and pushes the Doctor out of the way. Klieg hits one of the other characters on the shoulder, Callum, and tells the others that he intends to negotiate with the Cybermen. Kaftan is still also at his side, telling him, "Don't kill anybody, we'll leave them to the Cybermen." Klieg then opens the hatch and calls to speak to the Cyber Controller. The Cyber Controller comes up with Toberman and acts like he's going to acquiesce to Klieg's commands. But first he needs to be re-energized because the Cybermen are running low on power. So, after getting the thought that he's agreed to everything, Klieg brings the Cyber Controller, or has the Cyber Controller go into the re-energizing room, and has the Doctor and Jamie and one other person, I think the commander, Perry, with them. The Doctor then proceeds to try to trap the Cyber Controller in the sarcophagus by tying it up with rope. Which, yeah, rope plus Cyber Controller means that didn't work too well.
Well,
he didn't even care about the rope.
The Doctor blames Jamie's ability to tie knots.
Yeah, I'm still marking that up as another mistake. Meanwhile, the revitalized Cyber Controller activates Toberman remotely, who then proceeds to knock Klieg unconscious. The Cyber Controller bursts into the room, picks up Klieg's gun, Kaftan, and orders Kaftan to open the tomb. She refuses. He eventually has to do it again. She tries to shoot him with a gun, a regular gun, which does jack. The Cyber Controller then proceeds to shoot her dead. This triggers something in Toberman, who, with a little persuasion from the Doctor, pulls a Darth Vader and grabs the Cyber Controller bodily and hurls him across the room.
Several times,
breaking the control panel and making the Cyber Controller look supposedly destroyed. However,
if this came out a few years later, Toberman would have been obliged to scream no.
However, before the Cyber Controller was rendered inert, it had summoned some of the rest of its compatriots below, which Jamie has to start shooting. The Doctor wants to stop the Cyberman threat, goes back down into the tombs with Toberman, managing to convince him that revenge was needed. As the others tend to the other people, Klieg manages to steal the cyber gun again and sneaks down into the cyber tombs while the others tend to the injured. Seriously, they just left the gun on the table, people. Come on. In the tomb, Toberman starts to destroy the equipment, but the Doctor wants to freeze the Cybermen instead. However, Klieg appears with his gun, forces the Doctor away from the controls, and basically starts thawing out the Cybermen. The Doctor pleads with them, saying that he's going to wake them up, but that's his plan. At this point, Klieg is absolutely insane. He starts going on about how he's going to rule the world, how everyone was going to think like him. And the Doctor originally starts acting like it, but basically to prove to the others how absolutely mind-boggling insane he is. However, he's basically stopped in mid-rant as a revived Cyberman comes up and throttles him to death.
Yep.
Toberman fights and kills this Cyberman. And as he's about to reactivate the rest of them, the Doctor stops and freezes all of the Cybermen, hopefully, this time, finally. The Doctor and Jamie come up with Toberman. The Doctor starts re-booby-trapping the entire central area, both the controls, the hatchway, and the doors. But as he's just finishing this up, the cyber controller reactivates and lurches forward, trying to stop them. The Doctor and Jamie on the outside of the doors try to close the doors, realize that they will be electrocuted if they do, go and try to get planks of wood, which wouldn't conduct the electricity, to try to shut the cyber controller in from the inside. However, that doesn't work, so Toberman makes one last sacrifice, pushes himself against the door, electrifying himself after getting 2 or 3 finally good lines.
Essentially telling off the cyber controller.
Yep.
Finally, character development.
And then the very depressed Perry leaves with Hopper, and everybody goes on their ways.
I believe
But
ending on
as
both
everybody's leaving, one lone Cyberman just moves around the ground outside the doors to the city.
As the camera then also pans over to Doberman and then the doors.
Dun dun dun!
The
End of summary. All right. So we all know our format by now.
Doberman
What
is
you
only
like?
pawn in Game of Life.
Yeah, he does have that kind of Mongo thing going, doesn't he? Yeah, that's kind of what he felt like, was the fact that he really kind of felt like he was there to look like, I'm me and my muscles. I'm Captain Hammer.
He was even there to outstage Jamie, for crying out loud.
Yeah, seriously. Anyway, so you know the bit now. What generally did you like about the episode? And we're starting with Matt today.
Starting with me again today.
I do it in the order that you appear on my screen, and you're number 1.
I am number 1. I'm now Wario.
And you actually sounded more like Cornholio there, Matt.
Actually, that's a little more grainier, but anyway. All the good things to pick.
This is it in general. Remember, this is not specific scenes.
I have to say, one of the things I liked is I think, even though for the most part the suits were similar to the last one, I think they streamlined them a little bit more again.
I think they just added a new headpiece for the boss.
I know they repainted the tubing on the outside of the joints and stuff.
They did
They painted it darker, yeah.
They added the new head for the main leader, who, by the way, would also replace the role of, like 10 or 20 years later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to that episode.
But also, I think actually the actual suits themselves, I don't think they're that much different.
I think they weren't that much different. I think you are right. They got a new paint job. I think they did paint around the circle around the eyes a little fresher. And
I think they did that. I think also, though, I want to say there's something with the body. They seem to be a little more mobile this time than they were last time.
Maybe they did replace the undersuit with something a little more flexible.
That, or maybe they also made smaller versions of the chest piece. I'm not entirely sure. Might be a possibility. I think they kept most of the rest of it, though. I think the helmets are more, other than, of course, the paint job we just mentioned, is more or less the same. Which is a good headpiece.
All right. Anything else, Matt?
That was just my first general thought upon seeing these Cybermen. I quite like it, the same but obviously updated look of them.
All right. Bill?
I would say what I like about this episode is the feel of it does not a perfect but a fairly good job of invoking the feeling of European archaeologists in the Imperial Age exploring Egyptian tombs and that sort of that sort of mentality and archaeology going on. They could have gone a little bit farther with it, but I do like at least what was done with that idea in the first two episodes.
Okay. Tim?
I liked the thing I liked most about were the sets, where it really sparked my imagination, because like they looked sort of like fake enough that you could like this is a Doctor Who like goofy things, but they didn't look so terrible that it didn't like break your concentration. Like
there were
didn't
definitely some interesting things going on with the sets there. I'll agree there.
just suspend your disbelief.
Speaking of which, I actually noticed while going through the images, and I'll link you guys really quick. I'm looking at it right now on the stream. Looking at the background of this particular set, I just noticed, I think that the background might have been tinfoil by the look of it.
It was
Probably
probably
was.
one. It was probably that insulating foil-looking tarp that is used to sort of to keep. It's usually used for to keep heat in because of the reflective surface. That's probably something similar
Maybe
to what
something like
that
that
is.
too, possible too.
Yeah.
But it
But
it, it, it looks cheap,
so-
but at the same time, it was effective for what it was because you
What
normally
are you
wouldn't be
saying? That
paying
they
attention to
trapped the
that
second
part.
Doctor in a ball of tinfoil?
In the future, everything is chrome.
What I liked
Okay.
about these sets were that they were just right, just enough to make it fun to imagine them like being what they were actually trying to represent instead of distracting.
Yeah,
If
Right.
that makes.
they were cheap, but they were effective cheap.
Although
Yeah.
I did find it a little odd how many Cybermen faces there were all over the place, considering that you'd think the Cybermen did not have a concept of interior design.
Yeah, well, it turns out later that they had the Cryons build it, so maybe.
Maybe the crayons are just like, okay, we put your face on too. Please don't hurt me.
All right, Aaron, what did
Um,
you like?
My favorite overall thing was the music, the theme song for the Cybermen.
The
Which
the
also-
score retread from the moon base or something
Yeah,
different.
we were talking about it while we were watching it. It is the retread from the moon base. It was one that they used repeatedly. It became the cyber theme for the second Doctor, essentially.
Right.
And I told you I'd heard it in Web of Fear, and it kind of threw me off because that meant I kept expecting to see Cybermen when I should have been looking for Yeti.
Well, they were robots.
Yes, but they weren't Cybermen.
Cyber Yeti.
But still, yes, that Cybermen theme gets in your head. You'll wind up humming it for like days afterwards.
Yeah.
I think after we did the moon base, I was working in the kitchen the next day, and I heard myself going da 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 da. The Cybermen, I think, have some of the best music in Doctor Who.
Especially early Doctor Who, yeah.
I even especially liked some of the stuff from the '80s, Matt.
Oh, and the 80s stuff. Oh, yeah, the march. I love the 80s march for the Cybermen.
Yeah,
Boom, boom, doo doo doo.
yeah. I think they have some of the best accompanying music in Doctor Who of all of the various seasons and stuff.
You know what I think helps contribute to that? Is that essentially they're trying to do an electronic music back when the electronic music was either just barely a budding thing and back when they were still being touchy-feely getting through it thing in the 80s.
Quite possibly.
And I think that being that these are mechanical monsters, that they lend themselves very easily to that kind of music too. So all you have to do is make sure you got that menacing beat to it, and then you've almost got it.
Okay. So what I liked, I guess, was the atmosphere. When you were down in the tombs, it actually did kind of, feel a little bit like you were in the tombs.
Like this big, cold, empty place, yeah.
Yes, you could almost feel the temperature drop when you were down there. The filming and the set pieces together made it feel like what you were supposed to be expecting it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that really worked for me. Okay, so what didn't you like in general, Matt?
Ooh. I think the one thing that I didn't care for too much even on my first appearance, was that it was pretty obvious who the villains were going to be outside of the Cybermen.
Yeah, they kind of telescoped that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or telegraphed it, I mean. It was pretty much, it's like, we're the villains, and hey, we're the villains.
Have you mentioned we're villains yet?
It would have been great.
By the way, we're going to have another argument to prove that we're the villains.
I'm surprised they didn't red herring them as the villains, and it turned out to be Perry.
Yeah, that would have been a little more interesting.
Yeah, what if?
It'd be a hell of a twist.
But they didn't. They basically went, we're the villains, and yes, we are the villains. And you realize, of course, that your villains... I don't want to accuse the BBC of racism, but it was the 60s, and their villains were essentially a gypsy, a nerd, and a black man.
Ouch.
I'm not kidding. If you listen to Captain, she's talking with Romanian accent, and she had on all this dark makeup that Aaron pointed out to me that was supposed to make her look more olive-skinned than she was.
Mm-hmm. I noticed her blush was very dark, and it made her almost look, ghoulish, I would say.
And she had that kind of that gypsy accent. And then, of course, you've got Toberman, the big black man who talks little and supposed to basically look like... I mean, he would have made a good Klingon.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That basically was the type that they seemed to go for that. And then you've got Klieg, who actually might have been German if you listen to his name.
Maybe.
His name, but not... Yeah,
he didn't really
not
sound
how he
German,
made it on screen.
But he was basically this brain logician. So, these are your villains, people. You want to go for racial profiling?
It's Boris and Natasha, except less
Yes.
Natasha.
That's exactly what I've been thinking, and what I was going to kind of mention when I kind of led into my part. Yeah, it is kind of a Boris and Natasha thing going on here.
I would also say that it was, if they went even more racist than this, it would be Chinese people.
Said which one?
Back in the day.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'd see some of that later during the Tom Baker era.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Tim, what didn't you like in general about the episode?
In general, I thought the acting was a bit phoned in for like a lot of the characters.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah. Captain's
the captain is like it is like the way he delivers his lines is like I don't know what emotion you're going for.
He's going for you said the captain?
Yeah.
He's going for John Wayne emotion.
Kind of, but I mean, even that. I mean, when I didn't say captain, I said captain. Her death scene, she kind of pulled that one. A little hammed it.
Oh yeah. Well, it was supposed to be also this big death though too. So.
And as I said to Aaron, when Toberman got converted and started acting like he was cyber controlled, it's like, how can you tell there's a difference?
Yes.
And
that's just it. Nobody knows the difference.
Because he acted like that before. That's why I refer to him as Lurch, because he just sits there and looms for most of the serial.
Right.
And the other guy who was the pessimist of the group saying, we're doomed, this is a place of death, oh no!
Oh yeah, that was the boss.
That
I
was the
think.
guy that got shot at the end of the second episode.
Oh,
He was the guy that Klieg shot. He's down there because, oh no, we've got to stop it now, and then stopping it, and
oh yeah,
Klieg
yeah.
shot
Oh,
him
that
fast.
one, yeah. Because there were a
Yeah,
few people at different times that were convinced it was unsafe. The captain originally wanted to abandon it because a guy died, and he was like, "Oh, I'm just going to go wait in the ship." And yet somehow, while he's there, the ship gets sabotaged.
Sabotage.
yeah, and it's Toberman that does it. As if you can't see him looming, lurking, and lurching his way along there, and then messing
Out
with
the
the
door.
feline. He must have had some good porn in the cockpit.
That or he took sneaking classes from Tor Johnson because apparently that man was the size of an ox, but he could sneak up behind people all the time.
He's part of the Jason Voorhees school of sneaking.
Okay, so Bill, what didn't you like about this?
Mine is kind of a lead off of Matt's, and that's you can miss it once or twice watching it, but once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that is that the bad guys are the ambiguously ethnic duo and their black man who is all but a slave.
Yeah,
Yeah, I actually
Whereas
mentioned that
all
to
of the
Randy.
good guys are the white guys.
Yeah, I mentioned that to Randy. I'm like, is there any reason why he is played by a black dude and not,
Because the black dude they
It
found
can't
was
be for
really
Yeah,
ethnic-
because
freaking
that's the
huge.
It can't be for
stereotype: the big,
ethnic
strong,
diversity.
quiet black man.
yeah. That's kind of what I said too. It's a gypsy, a nerd, and a black man.
But even like you say, the nerd. But I mean, they I'm not sure if he was if they specifically chose a dark skinned actor for him, or if you mentioned that they might have darkened up the actress. I don't know if they did that with him, but he is noted as being another non-white character generally, and it does get really awkward when you see that the two people who are also obvious villains are also the ones without the white skin tone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
kind
that
of
might have been
noticed-
some.
Yeah.
I think that might have been some '60s racism going in there.
Yeah.
I
And
noticed
it's
that with
interesting
Moonbase,
because
too.
The Moonbase did it less, but
Yeah.
there were. But yeah, I'll admit that the one major black guy you see in there was the cook. It was Chef.
Yeah.
Hey, Chef.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's still there. But you see, at least with the Moonbase, you could tell it was a multinational team because you could see
Yeah.
everybody with the different country logos on there.
I think
Yeah.
one of the
Albeit
guys was
mostly
French.
white. Yeah, one was French, one was Australian, one was English, one was American. They tried to at least get it multinational, if not multiracial, something that Star Trek would do right out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And they in this one it's yeah, you're not a white Caucasian from America, England, or a British colony. You're the bad guy. Kind of sucked.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, what didn't you like about the episode?
It was. I didn't actually hate it, but I noticed it, and I was kind of. I didn't quite enjoy it as much. Let me see here. Make sure that this is what I want to talk about. Hmm.
Could you try to describe it or something?
I'm going through the list of my notes just to make sure, and I don't see it. I think this is the part that I want to talk about. It's the innovations that they did, and a lot of them worked, and some of them didn't. And it's the ones that didn't that kind of stuck out to me a little bit more, and kind of was like, hey, this is, I know what they're going for, I know what they're trying to do, but just doesn't quite work.
What's an example? Oh, there we go.
An
I
example
think
is here. An example is the Cybermats when they're kind of crawling up. I think they're trying to crawl up a ramp, but it's obvious that the Cybermats are not the same remote controlled Cybermats. They're actually on a treadmill that's being pulled up the ramp, and they're the ones that aren't actually moving. They tried to obscure that fact by like
Oh, so
kind of putting a little bit of
you're
dust
saying
and
when they
stuff.
can't quite live up to the effects they're trying to do, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I know it's something that has to be done in order for innovation to take place, but it's that awkward step in between,
Yeah.
starting it and actually getting it
Right.
refined. So
And of
there
course,
was moments like that.
this is before significant video editing, when they could really, take a scene like that, fudge it a little bit, and make it look like they're moving. Here, you see all of the inglorious details.
Yeah, exactly.
Better camera
were-
angle probably would have hid that.
hmm
So it's actually kind of also the fault of the cameraman.
Yeah, they did so much adding new technology to the Cybermen in that. The cyber guns, the cyber mats were all new.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And did you notice that the cyber guns actually shot something?
hmm
Oh yeah, I noticed that
If
they
you looked
kind
at
of
if
did
you
a
looked
little
at if you looked at the
smoky
up barrel shot,
yeah.
there were these little things that looked like cigarettes stored in the barrel. And if you watch when they fired it, you would actually see something come shooting out. They were essentially like Nerf darts, but the item in there would kind of balloon out. So
Yeah, it's essentially like it looked like they had a little smoke things that shot out of it while also lighting up.
yeah, it was basically shooting out a flashbang with paper wadding.
Kinda.
Yeah, that was kind of cool, but at the same time, you could kind of see it when you looked on the up barrel shot. So it succeeded and failed at the same time.
Again, cameraman needed to be told off once in a while. You're ruining the shot, man. You're ruining the shot.
Okay, so what I didn't like, and I'm actually going to do a two-parter on mine because they're kind of related to each other. Number one is accents. My God. And that, yes, the Americans either sounded like they were John Wayne, or they sounded like they practiced their roles for the part by watching a shitload of Leave It to Beaver.
I did notice a little bit of John Wayneisms, especially in the
They-
one captain.
They would have moments where they're talking like they're 50s American kids, and then they would break using a 60s slang word. And then you could also hear them trying to do a line, realizing that they're going to speak it Englishly and try to change it back to American halfway through. And kind of like, wow, you guys really were amateur hour on your accents, weren't you? And of course, then there's Lady with freaking Natasha accent. Really did not go over so well to me. On top of that, you have the cyber voices. Albeit, I will admit they did learn a little bit from the moon base, because you notice that all the cyber actors the voice actors were very well enunciating what they were saying.
Yes, they actually enunciated better than Klieg, because Klieg had that line where a lot of people listening think he's saying magician, where he's saying logician, and then the cyber controller, enunciated, "You are a logician," to be very clear about it.
But at the same time, it only made it more clear to me that they were using one of these devices. So
But at
it
the same
sounds
time, they finally figured out how to make that device actually sound right.
Yeah, I know, but it still bugs me because I will close my eyes and I will still see the line being done by Ned from South Park or the dude from Mad Max.
Well, we've got one more episode of those voices, I'm pretty sure.
At least one more.
I don't know. Wheel in Space? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned last week that was going to be an ongoing issue with me.
Yeah.
It's going to be even more painful
thinking,
for me next week because it's going to be telesnaps, which means I'm going to be listening and not talking or not
I'm
watching.
assuming the Invasion moved on to a new voice. Am I right with that?
I think they did, but I can't remember for sure. I'd have to sit down and watch it again.
Yeah, that's going to cost me a pretty penny because apparently the Invasion's out of print on DVD.
Uh-huh.
Because it's apparently $60 on Amazon.
Have you tried looking at the local the Barnes and Noble in Town, hun, they may have something on their shelves that they don't realize is out of print.
Yeah,
that we
they
could
could.
take a
I
look
believe.
I will have to check that.
Yeah, I would check with them.
I'll
I
check that
think I
when we're
might have
out
saw
tomorrow.
one there last time I was there, but I can't guarantee it's there again anymore.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'll check when we're out tomorrow. But I just found that out when I just went to Amazon today to look for it. It's going to be next month's going to be an expensive month because we've got the Invasion, we've got Revenge, and we've got Attack. I think all in the same
No,
month.
it's not in there, so it might be on my bookshelf. My
Anyway.
DVD shelf, rather.
Anyway, between the accents and the cyber voices, this was kind of an audio fail for me.
Yes, I have it. Sweet. There
Okay.
it is.
So I'm kind of wondering if it would have been better or worse if Klieg had tried to do a, that hard Prussian accent that they use for Nazi characters.
Colonel
If
Cliff
he
would
had-
just cringe.
Considering all the other accent failure, that probably would have made it worse, Bill.
Yeah,
Just saying.
that's what I'm thinking.
Hagen, make him shut up.
So, what specific scene do you like? Starting with Matt.
Oh, a scene that I really liked. Oh, there's a lot of good ones. I'm thinking of already two or three of them.
I have two in my mind. I'm going to see if either of them survive to the end of this.
I have a few in mind, but I think one of them might be yours because it's kind of an epic. It's kind of an epic doctor speech.
Yeah, that's the one I'm trying to lean away
And
from.
you gave it away, Bill. Anyway.
I'm purposely trying to lean away from that one, but anyone else could steal it.
Okay, Matt.
Hmm?
What's yours? Choose one.
You know what? I have to agree with the Fifth Doctor. The frosting scene.
The frost. Oh,
The
The
defrosting.
Cybermen emerging from their tombs.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. That's the most classic scene of this. I believe it was one of the only scenes that actually made it as a clip during the period that this was missing. I think Blue Peter or somebody showed
Most
it.
likely Blue Peter or somebody like
it's the
that,
scene
yeah.
that Neil Gaiman had to remake.
Yes. Yeah, and I'll admit that is a fairly epic scene. And of course they actually showed it twice because when the Cybermen go back into their tombs at the end, they just ran it backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, Tim. What's your favorite scene out of all 4 of these episodes?
My favorite scene is the one where the Doctor and Victoria have the little heart-to-heart talk
I was waiting
Aw,
to see if
damn
someone
it.
was going to pick that one.
Damn it!
about
Shenanigans.
about memories and like
Mhm.
Yep.
remembering his family.
This scene,
Yeah.
that from what I understand, was essentially shot for the purpose of showing off this former child actress as the new companion and having her remake doe eyes at the camera.
And it was also to provide closure from the last serial. Something that they actually did in that era. They would reference previous serials in the next serial. Something that they forgot
Right.
in the 80s.
Mm.
We bitch a lot about how you see Adric die in Earthshock, and then the next episode, the next serial, it's like he never existed.
Right.
Well, they make
And-
brief mention of trying to go somewhere to help relieve tensions, and that's the last you hear about it.
Yep.
But I think
And-
it's nice because it actually shows the Doctor empathizing with his companion.
And I think it's the first.
That scene also inspired a lot of Matt Smith's acting decisions as well.
It's a very nice scene, and Troughton did it better than Matt Smith did any of his scenes.
Mhm.
And it's because, it's also showing the Doctor how old the Doctor is. It's also the first scene, I believe, that the Doctor ever mentions his family, other than Susan.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a nice, touching scene. And yeah, that was one of the 2 on my favorites list. And apparently it was on some other people's too. I kind of figured that one wouldn't survive to the end. We'll see if my other one survives. Bill.
It wasn't on my list, but I knew someone was going to choose it. It is a worthwhile scene.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm going to go with the second one on my list, since Matt had taken the original one I put on my list even before rewatching the episode. But I'm going to go with the at the end of season 2. At the end of episode 2, where Klieg is certain that the Cybermen are going to work for him because he's released them, and he says, the Cyber Controller immediately, "You belong to us. You will become like us. You will be
like us." Yes.
You summoned the demon, but you don't have the means to control him. You are now his bitch.
And of course, Klieg never fully understands that the Cybermen are never going to work for him. He's a fucking moron.
Yes, he is.
You'd think after being backstabbed the first 2 or 3 times, you'd get that hint.
I think his big plan to get them to work for him is he gets one of their guns, that they have several of, and tries to use that to take them over.
Yes.
And with this gun, I will take over the world.
It's so nice to see this guy who's been, spending the entire episode, being the giant douche, thinking he's the king of everything, not even noticing how much smarter than him the Doctor is, and then the cyber controller just does not give a fuck, and he's like, "Yeah, you belong to me now.
You're mine, bitch. Thank you for waking me up. You're mine, bitch."
Clever.
Yeah, that was one hell of a cliffhanger.
That gun thing just put it over the top for me. That aha! Now I will control the Cybermen with this gun. Like,
thud.
Dude.
Really, Klieg? Really? They invented that gun.
A modern Doctor would have had a snarky line about that. I don't think Troughton had much to say about it.
No, because it was still the cliche wasn't fully driven home yet.
Right.
When Troughton did it.
That and also it wasn't actually done right in front of the Doctor either.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Originally.
So, Aaron.
Okay.
Your
I think I know
scene.
what you're... Huh?
Yeah, your favorite scene. Minus the ones that Matt, Tim, and Bill have said. You think you know what mine is? Yeah, I probably mentioned it when we were watching.
I think I know what your other one is. So I'm going to go with my other favorite scene since the Victoria one is taken, and that is the actually towards the beginning. It's kind of an easy scene to pass up, but the Doctor is goading Toberman. He's like, unless he's afraid. No, he's not afraid. And he just kind of backs away from Toberman and lets Toberman do his thing.
Yeah, that was back when Toberman was in full lurch mode.
Yeah.
Unless Toberman's afraid, and he just glares.
Was that before or after Jamie's scene with Toberman, where he's, "Let the Doctor pass, or I'll let the Doctor pass."
I think it's relatively close. I think it's the same episode at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's before, because they're still outside looking at the door, wondering what the heck is going to they're going to do to bypass it. I think. And the doctor actually turns to him and is like, "No, he's not afraid." That's what the Doctor says.
And that's something a lot of doctors would do. Just say something to see if he would react, and just to gauge what kind of guy this guy really is. And
yeah, I just like the Doctor's reaction to him. It's just like, "Oh crap, yeah, you can go ahead, go ahead and electrocute yourself."
Okay, my favorite scene is when they've escaped from the Cybermen, and they've all ran up the tube, and a Cyberman's following them, and they're closing the lid of the tunnel on him, and for a moment you just see this Cyberman holding up the lid, backlit by the lighting below from the tomb, with all this smoke billowing out of it, i.e., evaporated ice and frost. It looks so beautifully awesome.
That is not the scene that I specifically didn't mention because I thought you were going to say.
Oh, really? What scene did you think I was going to say?
The one that it's kind of an inverse Epic Doctor speech. The one where in episode 4 where he's talking about all the power Klieg would have, and how he would be the person to
the
lead
reverse,
the enlightened world. And then he has, "Well, now I know you're mad. I just wanted to make sure."
Yeah, that too was a great scene. I'm surprised no one else mentioned it.
I specifically didn't because I know you like Doctor speeches.
Yes, I know, but that particular scene, the one I mentioned, always sticks out as my mind. It sticks out in my mind even more than the Cybermen coming out of the tombs. And I think it's partially the lighting effect in the area around it, but it always just hit me as like that scene always impressed me, I think, from the directorial standpoint. So
Even yeah.
there you go.
See, I thought you were going to mention the what was it? The metal breakdown. Suffered a
Oh
metal
God,
breakdown.
that was that.
Aw.
The pun that physically hurt Jamie.
Yes. Yeah, I'm fairly certain that either the pun or Jamie's response to that pun was not in the original script, and that they either worked it out right there or while they were in rehearsal for it, because it is such a good point of Troughton and Hines, just how well they worked off of each
It so shocked me
other.
to see Jamie like react to a pun that way. Like I if anything, I thought he'd be confused, but then he's.
He's been with the doctor for a year now.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
been with the doctor for a while. He's getting it.
He gets the doctor's puns to the point that's and sorry Jamie, and it's just the fact that you can actually see that's the one bit of acting that was not overdone is the harmonic between Troughton and Hines. Those two were such a dynamic duo.
Yeah,
They really were.
All
right,
There's a
so
reason why he's the companion that lasted the longest number of seasons, except for I'm trying to think if Sarah Jane had more or not.
Technically, I think we might be
I think
getting
Sarah
up there
Jane
now
had,
with Clara.
did Sarah Jane have 2.5 or 3.5?
1, 2.5 at least. Anyway,
So that's still less than Jamie, and Clara would need.
might be
Okay.
3.5. Either way, we need to keep going here.
Yeah.
So, what scene didn't you like, Matt?
Oh, didn't I like? Oh.
There's got to be something.
Something specific though. I have to say the scene where they decide that they're gonna put the bad guys into a room with a gun.
Yeah, the one I mentioned in the
Earlier, yeah, just the complete and total leap of logic in that scene. Are you kidding me, people? Kind of moment.
Yeah, that was one of the epic fail moments. Tim, what scene did you not like?
The scene that I did not like was actually connected to a scene that I did like, which is like the thawing out. I liked the thawing out, but everyone's reaction to the thawing out was like, "Wow, this is the greatest moment in archaeological history." Oh, and yes, the killer robots are escaping, and who cares? But the
I think it was mainly just Klieg that.
Yeah, and it seems, if I may tange, just for 1 second,
Well,
that everyone in this series has like the slowest reaction time ever. It's like the ice is melting. The Cybermen's in like after like 50 seconds, the archaeologist goes to Krieg and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like,
Yeah.
he's like, "Stop that!" You know.
All right, Bill, what's your least favorite scene?
Every scene where the Doctor is helping Klieg free the Cybermen. There are so many scenes in there where it's like, Doctor, if you weren't helping him, he would probably never figure out how to do this on his own. But he just keeps solving his problems for him. It's just like, no. Each one of them there's just like, no, you need to not do that.
Yeah, I think though at the same time the Doctor needed to know for sure if there were any Cybermen left.
Yeah, kind of.
He wanted to, but at the same time, still, if like, and I get the whole the Doctor's plan was that when someone got in, he wanted to be there, but judging by this team, you can't guarantee they would have gotten in if he wasn't there. Like this specific team definitely wouldn't have, but I don't know if another team 50 years later would have been any better because he's the one who solved all their problems. And I think he wanted it to make sure that he was the one who was there to fix the problem when it happened, but I can't guarantee that the problem would have happened if he hadn't shown up.
Yeah, at the same time, I think, like I said, he's showing a morbid curiosity. He has to visually know himself whether there are any Cybermen left alive, because he knows if they're a threat, and he has to deal with them. So I think that's why he's subtly helping Klieg. Sorry, I keep wanting to call him Krieger, and I think that's because I watch too much Archer.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, so what's your least favorite scene?
The scene where Victoria puts the Cybermat in her bag, because, leave it alone means put the dangerous unknown, or at least unknown creature in your bag and tote it around as if it were a pet. It was
Maddie!
kind of cute, though. It was cute.
Okay, so one of mine, and this was kind of an epic special effects fail, is when Toberman pulls his Darth Vader and grabs the cyber controller, and they struggle off-scene for a moment, and Toberman comes up with basically a cyber controller doll and tosses it in there, and you literally see the head fall off of it as it hits the console.
Oh, that's right.
And then you cut back, and the head's still there. It was like, God, people, you couldn't afford one retake on that to sew the head on tighter. So that was my major one. But
Admittedly,
mind you,
it's a quick clip, but yeah, you can still kind of see it.
There's a whole lot of minor ones that I have throughout there, mostly because of either epic fail writing, or, to be honest, as much as I like the air of the tomb, the way it's designed makes no logical sense for you to have a tomb that just have walls at the end. It would have been nice if there had been more alcoves as they were going into it.
Yeah.
But I digress.
That
Filming
probably would have been a
choice.
budget thing, but...
Yep. Okay, so we are down to our final thoughts. I will start with Matt.
Despite the logic flaws, mostly with with dealing with the human villains, the rest of this episode, in my opinion, holds up pretty well, and it's a generally nice find that they managed to find this, even though despite the fact that the entire thing was missing at one point. Cybermen are still in good form. There's some good effects mixed in with the bad effects. Overall, I can't say I can hate that for sure. So, I guess that's about it.
All right, Tim.
I liked this episode a lot better than the Moon Base. It was very. I didn't mind the awkward acting that much, and I liked the sets, and the characterization of the Doctor was very very engaging.
Yes, it very was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if like I said, if even if the rest of the actings failed, Troughton was on his mark in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So this was a very enjoyable episode.
All right, Bill.
I'm going to say this episode, like the Moon Base, this episode has a mixture of of interesting strengths and interesting weaknesses. I do have to applaud it at this point as being a trilogy, essentially written, co-written in the case of this episode, but still a trilogy pretty much written by one person in a pretty short amount of time, doing a whole lot of things and spanning a total of four companions and 2 doctors in a very short amount of time. So I can definitely see the constraints it works with and very much applaud it for that. Still, there's a lot of tweaks and things. In this case, not only the script, but also to do with the casting, directing, things that we've discussed. Ultimately, I'm not sure I could say it holds up as well as the Moon Base, or obviously, of course, the 10th Planet being the start of the trilogy. It does have enough strengths to be recognized as a valid part of that trilogy, and and still hold up to an extent, if not perfectly.
Okay, Aaron.
I feel that although this is a darker story with a more downbeat ending than the Moonbase, I felt that it kind of matched the overall tone, a little bit more claustrophobic. Now it seems almost like a reverse of the base under siege theme that we've seen. In this instance, it's our heroes who are invading the Cybermen stronghold and kind of nosing about in it and everything. So I thought that was kind of an interesting twist, and I recommend it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I agree with Bill that there is a lot that goes right with this and a lot that goes wrong with this. There is, I mean, the Troughton and Hines have obviously gotten their act together and really know how to play off each other at that point, and that works to their advantage. But a lot of the rest of the acting seemed to be subpar in this, and I'm not including the new companion, Victoria. She seems to be okay, but she's still learning her role.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I can't really say whether I'd recommend it or not. But I actually feel the Moonbase is the superior of the two. So we will go to ratings now, and we'll start with Matt.
I do have to say, in general, as much as there was really good stuff, and when it was really good, it was really good. I still have to say that the flaws do hold it back because they were still testing things and they didn't test them enough in time for this episode. So it does hold it back a bit more than Moonbase. So I would have to give this a 3.5.
All right, Tim.
The atmosphere, the sets, and Patrick Troughton's performance just raised this to higher in my mind than Moonbase. So I'm going to give this out of 5 stars.
All right, Bill.
It's been a bit of a tough decision as I've been wavering between this and the lower score. I was going to give this a 3, but I think because just of the main cast and their successful performances, I'm going to bring this up to a 3.5. Troughton, Watling, and Hines just do the great job. Do a great job here, and
so Troughton
that
and
keeps
Hines brings it up
keeps it
for
above
you.
a 3.
Yes.
Okay, Aaron.
I'm going to say that I did not quite enjoy this as much as Moonbase. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars.
That is what you gave Moonbase.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm looking at the scores right now.
Yeah.
Huh.
Still giving
But
it 3.5?
I'm the same way. I was leaning a little below Moonbase, but ended up giving it the same score.
Yeah, I think I'm going to
It
have to
happens.
wind up doing that. It's
Okay.
not,
That's what happens when we don't do quarter
It
stars.
falters in certain places, but in other places it dives back up again for you.
Yeah,
Yep, so
exactly.
All right, and yeah, I also have to give this a 3.5. I gave Moonbase a 4, and I gave it a 4 for certain reasons, but these same reasons are there, but this one fails on other levels as well, which brings it back down to its 3.5. So that gives us an average score of 3.6.
Which is still above average and an
That means
honorable
that
score.
so far of our 3 Kit Peddler stories, Randy and Matt have a dead 4 average. I'm slightly below that with a 3.8. Aaron's slightly below that with a 3.6 repeating. And Tim is a little above Randy and Matt with a 4.17.
Tim
All
loves
right.
him some Cybermen.
And that's going to do it for Tomb of the Cybermen.
Before we wrap up, I do want to mention one piece of news that I found while we were talking about the episode that is somewhat Doctor Who related, and that is that single episode Doctor Who actor Simon Pegg, also known as Scotty in Star Trek, has been chosen as the co-writer of Star Trek 3. That is going to be apparently the 7th film that he's written, including the Shaun of the Dead trilogy.
That's that. I wonder how offbeat that's going to make the next Star Trek movie.
Yeah, interesting.
Because
all 6 of the films he's previously written were comedies.
Yes, that's kind of what I meant. They're also offbeat comedies. So basically, Star Trek 3, Kirk and the gang go boozing. It's going to be like the end of the world, only with different planets. Thinking of it that way, Simon Pegg would make a good Hitchhiker's movie.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic. Anyway.
He literally could make it just like End of the World, only instead of the main character, you just make the main character Ford Prefect or Zaphod Beeblebrox.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's going to do it for our podcast on Tomb of the Cybermen. We'll be back at this time next week covering The Wheel in Space, which is going to be a completely painful one for me, as that episode only exists in telesnaps.
So it's, I think it has 2 existing episodes.
Okay, so there's going to be 2 out of 6, I think?
5. I think it's 5. No, I think it's 2 out of 6. Yeah, I think it's 2 out of 6.
2 out of 6 exist, and that means that I'm having to watch an hour and a half in telesnaps. I'm not going to be a happy camper next week, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I actually listened to this episode. I didn't actually watch it for some of it, at least.
If you enjoy listening to us and you enjoy Randy's pain, you can pledge to our Patreon to help keep the show running. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook and listen to our podcast on twitch.tv, YouTube, and Mixcloud. And of course, don't forget to join us same time next week as we discuss The Wheel in Space.
All right. Good night.
Good night.